There was a time when Allen Iverson looked untouchable. The arenas were packed, the endorsements were pouring in. Millions of fans wore his jersey, copied his style, and tried to imitate every crossover move he made on the court. He wasn't just one of the biggest stars in basketball. For an entire generation, he was basketball. When Iverson walked into an arena, people didn't come to watch a game, they came to watch something happen. A crossover that would end up on highlight reels for years. A fearless drive into a forest of 7-foot defenders. At his peak, it felt like nothing could stop him. But by the early 2010s, something happened that nobody saw coming. The same man who earned well over $200 million during his career found himself standing in court, explaining that he was struggling to pay his bills. Financial problems, foreclosures, debt, alcohol struggles, a broken marriage. How does a man earn more than $200 million, become one of the most recognizable athletes on the planet, and end up fighting creditors in a courtroom? The answer isn't what most people think, because hidden inside the story of Allen Iverson's collapse was a decision he made years earlier. One so easy to overlook at the time that almost nobody noticed it. One that may have saved his entire future. Today, as he approaches his 51st birthday, the full story is far more complicated and far more remarkable than most people realize. But before we get to the collapse, before we get to the courtrooms, before we get to the fortune that somehow survived when everything else disappeared, we have to go back to the very beginning. Allen Iverson was born on June 7, 1975, in Hampton, Virginia. His mother was only 15 years old. Poverty wasn't something he witnessed, it was something he lived every single day. But even as a child, Allen Iverson was different. He had an inner fire that refused to accept the limitations the world placed around him. Sports became his escape. Basketball gave him structure when life felt chaotic. And by high school, people weren't just noticing, they were stunned. State championships, national attention, NFL scouts, college recruiters. For the first time, his future looked wide open. Then, almost overnight, everything changed. In February of 1993, Allen Iverson attended a bowling alley in Hampton with friends. A violent fight broke out. Chairs flew, punches flew, and when police arrived, among those arrested was Allen Iverson. What followed shocked the country. Despite maintaining his innocence on the most serious charges, Iverson was convicted under a controversial Virginia statute and sentenced to prison. Think about that. 1 month, you're one of the most celebrated young athletes in America. The next, you're sitting in a correctional facility, wondering if your life is already over. Scholarship offers disappeared. Recruiters stopped calling. Most people had already written him off. But fate had something else planned. Because while the country moved on, one man was about to make a decision that would change the course of basketball history. Legendary Georgetown coach John Thompson wasn't interested in the public narrative. He was interested in the person. Thompson believed that one controversial legal battle shouldn't define an entire life. And while every other program saw a problem, Thompson saw potential. Years later, Iverson would describe Thompson with a level of respect reserved for family. Because in many ways, Thompson became exactly that: a mentor, a protector, a father figure. And once Iverson arrived at Georgetown, everyone understood immediately why Thompson had taken the chance. The speed was unreal. Defenders chased shadows. Every performance felt like a preview of something historic. What separated Iverson wasn't just talent. College basketball had seen talented players. What it hadn't seen was this kind of fearlessness, a player who attacked every game like he was fighting doubt itself. And he was. June 26, 1996, Madison Square Garden, the NBA draft. Only a few years earlier, he'd been sitting in a prison cell. Now he stood at the podium as the first overall pick. With the first pick in the 1996 NBA draft, the Philadelphia 76ers selected Allen Iverson, the kid from Hampton, the teenager many schools were afraid to touch, the #1 pick in the entire NBA. But getting drafted was only the beginning, because Iverson wasn't entering an ordinary era. This was the NBA of Michael Jordan. Giants, dominant centers, and standing among them was a player barely 6 feet tall. Critics said he was too small to dominate. They were about to find out how wrong they were. From the moment Allen Iverson stepped onto an NBA court, he wasn't easing in. He came to take over. He played with an edge that couldn't be taught, one that came from years of fighting for everything he had. Fans loved him not because he was perfect, because he was fearless. And while his basketball was turning heads, something even bigger was happening away from the court. Allen Iverson wasn't just becoming a superstar, he was becoming a movement. The cornrows, the tattoos, the oversized clothing, the attitude. Everything about him challenged the traditional image of what a professional basketball player was supposed to look like. He wasn't following the culture. He was creating it. Millions connected with him because he felt real, flawed, passionate, human. But while his influence was growing off the court, his game was reaching another level entirely on it. The 2000-2001 season changed everything. Standing barely 6 feet tall, often outweighed by every player guarding him, Allen Iverson became the most dominant player in basketball. The NBA was filled with 7-foot centers and power forwards built like linebackers, future Hall of Famers in their prime. And yet the MVP was Allen Iverson, the smallest MVP in modern league history. A player told he was too small, officially named the best player in the world. It should have been the peak of his career, but what came next would become even more legendary. The playoffs felt like Iverson versus the world. The deeper Philadelphia advanced, the more impossible the story became. Eventually, they reached the NBA Finals against the Los Angeles Lakers. Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, a team that had steamrolled through the playoffs, a team many analysts believed would barely be challenged. Then they ran into Allen Iverson. In Game 1, he dropped 48 points on the biggest stage in basketball. The Staples Center crowd watched in disbelief. Then came the moment. Late in the game, Iverson hit a jumper over Tyronn Lue. As Lue fell to the floor, Iverson stepped over him and kept walking. No celebration, no hesitation, just pure confidence. A single image that would define an entire generation. The Lakers eventually won the series. The championship slipped away. But something important happened in those finals. Allen Iverson became immortal. And from the outside, it seemed like life could only get better. But success was quietly creating a problem nobody fully understood at the time. Because while his empire was expanding, the foundation underneath it was beginning to crack. The reality was simple. Allen Iverson spent money like someone who believed he'd never run out of it. And honestly, it's not hard to understand why. This was a kid who grew up in poverty, a kid who watched his mother struggle. Then suddenly, almost overnight, he had more money than anyone in his family had ever imagined, with dozens of people depending on him. The entourage grew. Hotels, flights, meals, celebrations. Allen covered it all. He gave because he could. But there's a difference between helping people and carrying everyone. Eventually, the weight becomes too much. Then came gambling, reports of massive losses, high-stakes nights that seemed impossible to believe. Here's what makes it dangerous. When you're earning millions every year, you can hide financial problems. A bad week gets erased by another paycheck. A reckless decision disappears under the next contract, until the contracts stop. Retirement removed the one thing that had been covering every crack, the money itself. The lawsuits came. The foreclosures came. The headlines were relentless. Creditors circled a man who had once earned $200 million and now couldn't pay his bills. But the money wasn't even the deepest wound. What was unraveling at home would leave a mark that no settlement, no headline, and no comeback check could ever fully reach. And underneath the financial collapse was something even more painful. His marriage to Tawana Turner, a woman who had known him before the NBA, before the fame, before any of it, was falling apart. Years of unresolved issues, alcohol, public scrutiny. When divorce proceedings began, it wasn't just another headline. It was the loss that hit hardest. Years later, when asked about his lowest moment, Iverson didn't point to foreclosure or money. He pointed to his marriage. That was the weight he carried hardest. By the early 2010s, many people believed Allen Iverson's story was over. But what almost nobody knew was that a hidden lifeline had been quietly waiting in the background for years. And here's the part that almost every obituary of his career completely forgot to mention. In 2001, at the height of his fame, Allen Iverson signed what would become one of the most important contracts in sports history. At the time, it looked like another major sneaker deal, nothing unusual. Companies wanted his name, his image, his connection with millions of fans. But hidden inside that Reebok partnership was something far more valuable than most people realized. The deal included lifetime payments, checks that would arrive year after year, long after his playing career ended, long after the crowd stopped cheering. That alone was remarkable. But there was something even more important buried in the agreement. A trust fund. Protected, locked away, untouchable. Money that couldn't be spent on impulse. Money that couldn't be gambled away. Money that couldn't disappear when lawyers came calling. For decades, that fund would simply sit there, growing, waiting, protected from everyone, including Allen Iverson himself. Think about how incredible that is. At the exact moment when Iverson was spending freely and living large, Someone had placed part of his fortune behind a wall he couldn't break through. At the time, it didn't seem important. Why would it? He was rich. He was famous. The future looked limitless. But years later, when the homes were being lost, when the debts were mounting, when headlines declared that Allen Iverson had lost everything, that protected fortune was still there, growing larger every year. And almost nobody outside his inner circle knew it existed. The public saw collapse. The public saw failure. What they didn't see was the financial lifeline that had been quietly preparing itself for decades. Allen Iverson hadn't escaped the consequences of his decisions, far from it, but the idea that he had permanently lost everything wasn't entirely true, which meant the story wasn't over. It just needed one more thing. Throughout his life, Allen Iverson had beaten defenders, beaten critics, beaten poverty, beaten doubt. At him in the mirror. He chose sobriety, and that sentence sounds simple. In reality, it may have been harder than winning the MVP. This battle was won one day at a time, one decision at a time. No crowd, no scoreboard, no highlight play that could instantly fix everything. People close to him noticed. The man they knew seemed more present, more grounded, not perfect, but better. Family became his foundation again. His children became his motivation. And the relationship with Tawana, the woman who had been there before everything, slowly, painfully, and surprisingly, began healing. As Allen Iverson approaches his 51st birthday, it's impossible to tell his story with statistics alone. An MVP, 11 All-Star selections, 4 scoring titles, a Hall of Fame career, more than 24,000 career points. But Allen Iverson's story was never just about basketball. Long before social media, long before personal branding, long before leagues openly embraced individuality, Allen Iverson was already changing the culture. He wasn't trying to fit into someone else's expectations. He was simply being himself. That authenticity survived retirement. It survived controversy. It survived financial collapse and personal loss. Very few athletes leave that kind of impact behind. And then there's the twist that still surprises people. The trust fund, the hidden fortune, the financial lifeline that quietly grew in the background while much of the world assumed he had lost everything. A decision made during the height of success became a safety net during the darkest years of his life. Sometimes the choices that matter most are the ones whose value you don't understand until decades later. The crossover made him famous. The MVP made him legendary. But the comeback may define his legacy. Because basketball was never the hardest battle Allen Iverson faced. The hardest battle began after the cheers stopped, after the spotlight faded, after the world moved on. The hardest battle was learning to live with his mistakes, to rebuild what had been damaged, to become a better father, a better partner, a better version of himself. Money can disappear, fame can fade, careers end, but growth stays with you. And after everything he lost, everything he endured, and everything he overcame, Allen Iverson kept getting back up. Sometimes, that's what true greatness looks like.